So I did look up a nice little quote from Love in the Time of Cholera, thinking that perhaps there would be some parallels, and that would be a good place to start. My dad just texted me that he can't get into the meeting. I don't know why, but he threw me off. So sorry. Okay, so here we go. To him, she seemed so beautiful, so seductive, so different from ordinary people that he could not understand why no one was as disturbed as he by the clicking of her heels on the paving stones, why no one else's heart was wild with the breeze stirred by the sighs of her veils, why everyone did not go mad with the movements of her braid, the flight of her hands, the gold of her laughter. He had not missed a single one of her gestures, not one of the indications of her character, but he did not dare approach her for fear of destroying the spell. Now, I don't know if that's how Paul feels about Inez, but now he can tell us.
Well, but that's the weird, well, tell them how we met.
Okay, Paul being scared of being forward, no, definitely not. The reticence came on my side. For those of you who don't know the story, this was the initial transatlantic romance was via a computer, not by a dating site, not by any shared interest really, but I have sons in New Zealand and they taught me how to play Scrabble online, but generally speaking I was playing them with people in England, and I was being an irresponsible assistant principal in a high school. Even though I was starting work very early the next morning, I was up far too late and all my sensible, responsible friends had gone to bed. And I ran out of people to play with. And there's a little button on a Scrabble game that says if you have nobody to play with, you can choose somebody new. So I hit the random opponent button and I got Paul Santori, which was, hello, where are you? And my name's Inez. He thought maybe Spain, maybe California, England. Oh, a little bit, there's a chat feature, a little bit of chatting. Can I have your phone number? No. I don't know who you are. Definitely not. You can go from there.
Yeah, well then I'm like, oh, well, are you on Facebook? I'm like, she's like, yeah. I go, do you mind if I check out your, whatever? And then I go look and there's like a picture of some cats and like her backyard covered in snow. That's it, like, except for her little tiny profile picture, So I'm like, well, she seems like I guess I don't know. I could tell nothing from her stupid Facebook page. but then she wouldn't let me. But then here's the thing: she wouldn't let me. She wouldn't let me see what she looked like. All she would do, like, eventually, I got her email address, and we were going back and forth, and and texting each other, like, well, or like on Facebook, and but she wouldn't let me see her. She wouldn't do Skype or anything. And all she would send me was the most horrible pictures of herself, because she says, I don't want to give you, I don't want to send you like a glamour shot or anything. I want you to see how I really am, which they wasn't like how she really is, because everything she looked like she got dragged through, from behind a car for 10 miles, you know what I mean? So I'm like, so even to the point that when she actually finally came to America, I didn't really know what she looked like. So, and plus she got stuck behind some student in the immigration line that took 45 minutes. So I'm sitting there with torches of the damned holding these stupid roses I bought at the shop at Dulles Airport, Dulles Airport. So I'm standing there, I'm holding the flower, and people are coming out. I'm like, oh God, that's not her, Then she finally came out, and what I didn't do, and this is the reason why she got stuck, and then I'll let her take off. This is the reason why she got stuck in the immigration line, because she had bought a change of clothes to change right before she came out, so she could, make an entrance. You know what I mean? So. Anyway.
Well, it's a long journey from my house, and it's a long flight. And I thought I don't want to appear with all the clothes that I was crumpled in, and that was it. But to be back a little,
Go ahead.
But to go back a little, eventually, I think after about 3 months, I gave you my phone number. only my home number because only my family gets my cell. He couldn't have my cell phone.
She gave me her home phone number right before she decided to go on vacation for 3 weeks. So it says, I'm not giving you my cell phone. I'm giving you my home phone, but I'm not going to be here for 3 weeks. I'm like, okay. No choice. What can I say, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of playing hard to get, I guess. But anyway, so we talked a while. It's been kind of nice that, you know, we talked such a lot before we met, because a lot of the anxieties, the concerns about what you do on a first date, well, we talked about life, the universe and everything before we had our first date. But I sort of said, we were talking about meeting up, and I thought, well, he sounds fine, but, you know, this is America and he might be crazy and I don't know him really. So if we're going to meet up, I'll go to America, because if he comes to England and he is weird, I then have to get rid of him. If I go to America, you know, I can change hotels, or worst case scenario, I just get an early flight home. So that was okay. So I booked.
She was really optimistic.
As he said, you know, he met me. He drove a van at the time. We still do. But he met me at the airport with a bunch of red roses, and he'd hired an electric blue Mustang for the week. And I thought, yeah, okay.
It's because my van was having starting problems, and then they gave me, I've got a good deal on a Mustang. I said, well, that sounds kind of cool. And then I go out, it's the color of the bottom of a pool. I'm like, I almost went back in and said, you've got to give me something else, you know? But anyway.
So, you know, I kind of how Paul and I got to where we are has all been pretty haphazard, really, in that we met on a chance meeting via a computer game. I went back from my week in the USA with an engagement ring on my finger and a promise to go back. I had already arranged to give up my job. I'd been married before. My husband had died 5 years previously, and I'd sort of kind of thrown myself into my work. And then I thought, okay, that's enough of that. I've always wanted to travel. I've always wanted to go to Italy. I've always wanted to visit gardens around the world. So I'm going to learn Italian, and I'm going to travel, and I'm going to stop working. And then I met Paul. But for that first year,
ruined everything.
Yeah. So for that next year, I'd got arrangements made with friends and family, and so, you know, we were talking things through. And I said, look, I have my next year planned. And if I don't do all these things, then it's going to be your fault. So I'm still going to do them all, but subject to the limitations of an Esther. If I'm not in the UK, I will be with you. If I'm not in the UK and traveling, I will be with you. So that was it. And then I had my old-fashioned moment, I guess. My parents had long since deceased, but Paul's was still alive, and I had 3 children, adult children. So I said, you know, as part of this thing, well, I will marry you. I don't care if anybody objects. That's fine. You know, if people don't like the idea, that's tough. You know, we're both old enough to make our own decisions. But before we get married, I have to meet your parents, and you have to meet my children, because that's the polite way to do things. So the first thing we did was set up a visit to Texas, where Paul's parents are.
Yeah, that was funny, because we got there and we're there for a while. And first of all, she's nervous because her last husband, her in-laws didn't like her at first, you know. So she's nervous about going to see them. So we're there, and she's really quiet. And she turns to me, she goes, "They don't like me." And I said, "What are you talking about? They don't like you. They love you." And then she goes, "They didn't offer me tea when I came in." I'm like, they don't do that here, you know. It's not automatic, you know, that you offer someone a hot drink, you know, when they walk in, especially in Texas, you know what I mean? So then she relaxed a little bit after that.
Yeah, but then when Paul visited me in England and went to met some of my friends and went around places, he realized that as soon as you go through the front door, people say, "Would you like a cup of tea? Would you like a coffee? Would you like a drink?" It's the first thing as you go through the door.
Yeah, have a biscuit, all the stuff, you know.
So,
and you know what? You can't, like, it's not like if they say, "How are you doing?" You're expected to actually give them the blow by blow, like the last month at least of your life. You know what I mean? You can't just say fine.
So yes, we went to Texas, and I got on well with the family. And then the whole thing about meeting my children was that 2 of them are in New Zealand. And I'd actually planned a 6-week trip, Australia and New Zealand. So I just said, well, meet me in Australia. You can meet my cousins and then we'll go to New Zealand together. And it was, you serious? And I said, yeah, I'll sort it all out. Just let's go. So we then went and met my kids, and we had the July, we met in the May, we met online in the October, we met in person May the following year, so 2014, and we actually got married in July 2015. And one of the first places Paul took me was on the Potomac River. We lived in Falls Church, Virginia. Dave Sharp was actually at our wedding. It was a great thing. So however we decided to do it, I don't know, but we ended up getting married on a paddle steamer, cruising down the Potomac River in the middle of July. So we slowly moved towards the river, because first it was going to be she wants to get married in a garden. Then she said, well, let's get married by the river. And then she found a way to get married on the river. That's how it progressed. Right. So it was an exciting wedding. But when Paul did the groom's speech, and he said, so if ever you need a wedding planner, get Inez. And I said, you mean you can pay somebody else to do all this? It's kind of a bit late by then. So yes, we got married on the river. So our meeting was very much by chance. And then we get to coming to these.
What?
I was just thinking, I think 18 months after we got married, Paul was diagnosed with leukemia. That got a bit dramatic.
Well, we moved. I got. I forget what I don't even know how. Oh, it was so freakish. Like I got one day I got a really bad pain in my stomach that didn't get better. It just kept getting worse and worse. And to the point where I called her, I said, you know what, I think I need to go to
I was at work.
I think I need to go to the emergency room or something. She was at work. So she called her boss, told her boss what was going on. Boss said, just shut the store now. It was pretty late anyway. It was so weird. Like she called, she doesn't like to drive at night, and I was too sick to drive. So we called it Uber, and we just said, take us to the nearest emergency room. So they took us to this Virginia, it was called Arlington Hospital at the time. I think it's called Virginia Hospital Center now. And they did, and they did a scan to see what was going on in my stomach. And I'm sitting there, that by then they had given me some morphine or something like that. And for my stomach, because it was hurting me that bad. And I'm sitting there, I'm laying there, I'm thinking, you know what, I bet she's going to come in and say I've got cancer or something like that, And sure enough, he goes, well, it looks like the thing in your stomach is just like a
kink.
I got a twist in your intestine or something like that. He goes, but unfortunately, all your lymph nodes are lit up like Christmas trees, and you've got this mass on your liver and all this crap. And I'm like, oh man, And I'm sitting there and I'm laying there, Mr. Oblivious. I'm like, I knew he was going to say something like that. And then I looked over at her, whose last husband died of cancer, and she's like gray. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh no, So she was pretty much, I really know how to pick them. And then I ended up, but they did biopsies. The thing in my liver was nothing. And what it ended up was I had leukemia. So.
But that's all working out okay. The
leukemia was fine. Yeah, I mean, leukemia is fine. I had to do 6 months of chemotherapy. We moved out here. I put it this way: I took early retirement from my job because she said, because I hated my job. Right, I'm working for immigration. I didn't like my job. So she says, what you'd really rather just be doing is making music and paint and doing arts and stuff, right? I said, yeah. So she's the financial wizard of the family. So she said, well, with my retirement and what you get when you retire, she crunched all the numbers. She goes, you could retire early if you want. So I did, and then I got leukemia. And then she was sitting on her laptop one day, not looking for any real estate or anything. And this thing pops up in her window, house for sale, Rock Hall, Maryland. We're like, hey, she's like, it was like $50,000 for this house, man. We were like, wow, it's cheap, man. I mean, everything in Arlington was like, around where we live was like $500,000, for a tear down. So we said, I said, I heard the Eastern Shore is kind of nice. Let's go there. And so we decided to go up there and look at this house. And I'm like, we crossed the bridge, and then it was like another hour to get to Rock Hall. I'm like, where the hell are we going? You know? And I remember this. This is famous last words, right? I remember, like we were finally, we saw this sign that said, "Welcome to Rock Hall," like by the church there, you know, on the road there. And I said, well, this is career suicide. I mean, I'm an artist and musician. What the hell am I going to do out here? You know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is, I've done more here, I think, than I would have back there, because partly thanks to RiverArts, actually. So give RiverArts a little plug there, because, but then we went there and we thought, well, nothing happened with that house. I think we even made an offer, but it was something weird about it. Like they had their alcoholic uncle like trying to get it ready for inspection, and he never seemed to quite get it together. And one thing, so we didn't end up getting a house, but we thought, well, we kind of were intrigued by the area, you know, especially Rock Hall, because it's right by the bay and all that. So we actually end up renting this place on Sharp Street. Yeah, want to tell them about the place on Sharp Street, honey?
The place on Sharp Street. Well, the first thing that, when we say we lived on Sharp Street, Rock Hall, and they say whereabouts, we say opposite Maggie's. Maggie's is a bar. And it was directly opposite our house. Whenever we say opposite Maggie's, there's usually this sharp intake of breath of, you know, are any problems?
You live in the bad part of town.
But
across from Maggie's.
So there were a couple of times we went to Maggie's, and they do this amazing pink sherbety, goodness knows what's in it drink, which I have had a couple of.
Maggie's Madness.
Maggie's Madness. But the thing is, behind the bar at Maggie's is Audrey. You would be as likely to misbehave or swear in front of Audrey as you would in front of your grandmother on a bad day. There is this whole rule the roost. Maggie's is closed on Sunday. During the week, it closes at 10 o'clock. Nobody stays late. There's no after hours, and Audrey runs a really tight ship. So, you know, living across from Maggie's was great.
I know, I was like, what kind of bar is this? They close at 10? They're not open on Sunday. The only time I ever heard, I thought there was an altercation, and I looked over there, it was a guy yelling in his cell phone at somebody out in the parking lot. That's the only time I heard a disturbance, the whole time. Anyway.
So we had this, we are now renting and basing our rental experience on the decision as to whether we were going to stay on the Eastern Shore.
Yeah, we were basing our decision. We were trying to decide whether we wanted to actually live here. So we thought we'll rent it for a year and see what it's like living around here. Right.
So, old house, no insulation.
With those crappy baseboard heaters, you know what I'm talking about? That you see around here? Awful. They don't do anything. Anyway.
Yeah, so in the summer, absolutely roasting. The window air conditioners don't make any difference at all. In the winter, absolutely freezing, blankets, jammers, hot water bottles, and the plant still died. Mosquitoes, absolute plagues of mosquitoes. We've got bitten to bits while we were there. So in our first 6-8 months, that was our experience of the Eastern Shore, by which time we were already looking for a house to live in to buy. We decided we were staying, and that was it. So yeah, we got to the Eastern Shore by accident. We ended up in Chestertown because there was a house that would fit a studio and a music practice room. And
plus my daughter was living with us at that time too. So it was in the Kent County High School district, and she was already sort of in there. So
and I ended up, due to the whole RiverArts experience and Paul entering RiverArts exhibits, I ended up working initially as a volunteer at RiverArts, and then ended up working with them, handling their data, and that has been lovely. I've been with RiverArts over 2 years now.
Oh yes, and while you're on that subject, by the way, I mean, I did Paint the Town in, what year was that?
2019. That was your first one.
Yeah, I did Paint the Town. And she's like, hey, you should go out and do this Paint the Town thing. I'm like, I'm doing these wild abstract paintings, throwing paint all over this and big scrapers, and you can see them at our gallery if you come downtown. She's got some of those paintings up there right now. I'm like, what am I going to do? Go out and paint trees? You know? But I tell you, I had a really good experience, and I've done a lot of painting like that now.
We have a room full of trees.
Yeah, I'm part of the plein air group now. Actually, the ladies that go out and paint by the river.
Mm. On classes, Mariah was talking about classes as well. Paul is doing a class in late May, which is called Liberate the Landscape. And it basically addresses the fact that a landscape can look like whatever you want it to look like, and it can be abstract, it can be semi-abstract, it can be dreamy, it can be photographic if you want it to be, but a whole idea of it can be in any medium, it can look exactly as you perceive it. So you'll pick up more details on that, no doubt, later in the month on the website. So we ended up in the Eastern Shore by accident, and then we ended up with our own gallery pretty much by accident as well. And up the road from RiverArts is Tish, and we had never planned on opening a gallery. We had retired, we were focusing on art and music, I was at RiverArts, and we were walking down the high street going out for dinner, and there was this advertisement in a window that said apartments to let. And below the apartments was a building site. We could see through the big plate glass windows, and the floor was dug up and the walls weren't plastered, and it was just a mess. And I rang them up and said, we don't need an apartment, what are you doing with the shop? And they said, it's not ready yet. And we said, we know, nor are we, but what are you doing with it? Because we just said that would make a really cool gallery. And that was an impulse thing too, and bits of negotiations back and forward, and we ended up with Tish. So we opened in the beginning of February in 2020, and we closed in the middle of March 2020 for almost 3 months. And you know, it's been novel, and it's really nice. I've got a Tish artist here, I've got Christine Cook here, and it's lovely to see you. So gradually, you know, people came in, and we got in touch with a few friends and said we're opening a gallery. Oh, our first show was purely Paul's thing, because we went on holiday, then we came back, then they said we could have the gallery, and we thought, well, okay, we're paying rent on it, we haven't got any pictures to put up, so we just filled the whole thing with Paul's art while we talked to other artists and found other things to go on the wall. And we had Holly Geddes, Bob Slocum, Bob Snyder, and Penny McRae were our first 4 artists who went up there for our first show. And we had music, we had the high school jazz band playing as we opened, and it was a really nice opening. And then, of course, with COVID, everything goes quiet. And then we come to where we are with loving the time of COVID, and you know, it's such an insidious disease. I mean, Paul and I thought we were really careful. Paul had leukemia. Although he was in remission, Paul had leukemia. Although he was in remission, we knew his immune system was compromised.
Because I had to go back on chemo too. I did 6 months of chemo. I stayed good, and then it came back last year, so I had to start taking these pills. They changed it. That cutting edge technology, apparently. They've got these pills you can take now instead of having to get the IV stuff. So
anyway, so I'll go on to that bit. But does anybody want to ask us anything in the meantime? Because we've just sort of talked non-stop.
No, but well, you know, I just like to say. Oh, go ahead, Mara. I was going to say something. What are you going to say? Anyway, but you know, but we're like everyone, like, boy, 2020 was a piece of crap. I can't wait for 2021. Then on New Year's Eve, I got sick. She had started running a fever a few days before. And she tested positive. And then I started running a fever too, and then I tested positive. And
yeah, so we thought we'd been careful. We still have no idea how we contracted it, because the two of us, and we lived together. Presumably it was the same strain, and mine followed the trajectory of so many people in that I felt unwell for a couple of weeks. I ran a fever, I had really nasty headaches, just like a bad case of flu. Paul ended up in ICU on a ventilator, had a tracheostomy, was in hospital for 7 weeks, and very nearly died. And
yeah, after I went to the emergency room here, I went 3 times before they admit me.
Yeah, but finally they did. He went to Glen Burnie, and we have to really thank the medical staff there, because we are in no doubt at all that they saved Paul's life. He was classified as a non-breather on arrival, and he was put on a ventilator on the same day.
If you ever had anything wrong with your lungs, go to Baltimore Washington Medical Center. They spent. I'm glad that we had the doctor who was working at the ER here in town, at the hospital here in town. I think she went out of her way to make sure I got a bed there, because they have the best recovery rate we have the best recovery rate for COVID patients in Maryland, actually. You know, but that was crazy though, because like right before we went, you know, I'm way too familiar with like oxygen levels in the blood and stuff I never ever wanted to know about, you know what I mean? But put it this way, anything below like 88 or so is not good. And the night before I went, before they came and picked me up in the morning, take me to the hospital, it was at 77. And she's telling me we have to call 911, but I'm out of my mind because I'm not getting enough oxygen to my brain or whatever. So I'm crazy, and I'm saying, I'm not going to go die in the hospital. If you call them, I'm not getting in it, you know, and I'm not getting in the ambulance, and I'm going to die here at home with my cats, and you know. But fortunately, like, and she was begging me like from the night before until the next morning, like for 3 hours, you know, and finally it was like I just. For some reason, like, and I was literally in a delirium. I was seeing stuff. I mean, it was just crazy, saying weird, disconnected. She remembers. I don't remember a lot of it. But for some reason, I snapped out of it just long, and I looked over at her, and she was absolutely like, again, like when I got diagnosed with leukemia, she was gray, like, and I could tell she was really upset. I said, oh, okay, honey, I guess you better call 911, you know, which is a good thing she did, because, I mean, because you know, this is all, maybe it doesn't impact you the way when I say it, but you know, my oxygen, when I say my oxygen level was that low, my blood saturation was that low, this was getting 5 liters of oxygen from a machine I got to give me extra oxygen. So even with that, I was dying. So
it was kind of interesting though, because yeah, he did say that. He said, I'm not going to go to hospital, I'll die in hospital, I'm going to die at home with you and the cats and my art, my paintings. Because,
you know, I read stuff like, if they put you on a ventilator, you're a dead man. Kind of, you know what I mean? So, but that was the first thing they said to me. Like, they were real, the doctor was really clever, you know, because she's like, you know, we're thinking that, you know, probably the option we're going to need to use for you is to put you on put you medically into a coma and put you on a ventilator. And, you know, is that okay with you? You know, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, you know. And as soon as I said that, like 2 seconds later, someone's with a syringe to knock me out and get me down there, because I didn't know. I mean, I didn't realize what, like when they admitted me, my classification was non-breather. I was like, that sounds pretty bad, right? Yeah, but you know, I'm really like, it's like a miracle that I'm still here, because after I got out of the hospital, I finally came home. We had a nurse come, and she said, "Okay, well, I see you coded twice in while you're in ICU," and like, what does that mean? And like what does code blue mean? And basically what it means is I died twice. And even then we went to this post-discharge hospital visit, and she goes, "Oh, Paul Santori." She goes, "Oh yeah, I recognize your name from one of the panels we had when they discussed like special patients, you know, special situations and stuff."
Yeah, my view was always, I always knew you were special, honey, but I didn't actually need you to be that special. Yeah. And on that morning when I finally got him to agree to go to ICU, and I was kind of waiting for him to pass out because I'd have called anyway. But on that morning, I was actually, when he agreed to go, I was crying. No great drama. There were just tears. And he said, "Okay, you better call 911. And I thought, if I'd have known that was what it would take, I'd have cried 2 hours ago. You know? But yeah, it's all good. Anyway, we're going to take a short break because because Paul plays music.
Oh yeah, I have a song I'm going to play for you guys.
It's actually a song. It's quite a dramatic song, but it was one about when he was at home and not well.
Yeah, because I was like, I don't know whether You guys, some of you are like have pets, so you may not, you know this, that it's a fact that when you're sick, the cats come and lay around with you. The cats come hang out with you. But at one point, I'm like, the cats, the cats weren't around. I'm like, where's the cat? You know, because my cat Arthur spends 90% of his life in bed, sleeping in our bed, sleeping. So I'm like, where the hell is Arthur? So I wrote this. So I wrote this song. It's called "Where's the Cat."
And I wasn't actually staying in the room because I was told that as long as we were both infectious, I was better sleeping in another room rather than concentrate the bugs. So anyway,
yeah. But anyway, we still have to take him downstairs to look at the studio real quick at the end. So, but here, this song called "Where's the Cat?" Okay. Can you hear it? Okay. My ribcage is a broken basket. My brain case is a battered box. Each releasing chunks of memories. Relieving the night when I cough. Perhaps I should get in the shower. Then I wouldn't feel so drained. But when I get out and get back in bed, the debris just piles up again. It's 3 a.m. Where is the cat? The bed of wives is like my head. The association doesn't cost a thing. Maybe I'll come up with something worth my time to sing. It's the only time that things appear in black and white. My gray matter's gray. No matter what I touch, it's 4 a.m. Take my temp again. Where is the cat? I miss my Gwen. Philosophy's the worst. Much better is a pile of food. Others pray for me. That's much more than I do. Watch 10 hours of TV. What it was, I haven't a clue. Another the passing moments in my chair. It's 5 a.m. Dark is the night. Waiting for light. Where is the cat? Where is the cat?
Thank you, Paul.
The cheeriest little ditty, but I thought I'd share that with you. So should we just run?
Oh,
Take
just
him?
talk for a minute. You put
Yeah, oh, she needs to talk for a minute.
Yeah, the whole thing
Next time.
about loving the time of COVID, and one of the things that's really hard when you have your other half, you know, your soulmate, whatever you want to call the person that you love and you live with, going to hospital at the moment, is you can't go. There is no contact. You can't be there. You know, there are times when just being able to hold somebody's hand would make them feel better, just the reassurance, even if you can't do anything practical. And of course, that's not an option. You can't do it. And I just wanted to kind of mention the staff at the hospital, because I could ring them anytime. They would ring me if there was any news. They would ring me with updates. There was one time when I was talking to a nurse, Lauren, and she said, "Do you know the code to your husband's phone?" I said, "I think so. Yes, I do." And she said, "Well, if you don't mind giving me the code, I'll take you in." And this was the time when he was actually on the ventilator. And she took me with his phone and his camera and explained exactly what was happening and what all the wires were. And Paul knows me well enough to know that if I can't be in any way in control of what's going on, at least I like to know what's going on. So
Yeah.
small
Oh, go ahead.
small things like that just made a huge amount of difference, because there was the impotence of not even being allowed to visit. And, you know, the wonders of modern technology, when Paul was actually conscious again, and he could send me a text message, even if it didn't make much sense at the time, which meant I knew he was awake.
I sent her some very weird text messages.
Yeah.
They were because they were giving me so much drugs when I was there. It was like, wow.
So, you know, and the actual joy of when the visiting regulations were relaxed, and anybody in the hospital could have one person to visit, as long as it was only that one person for the duration of the stay. And I didn't even tell Paul I was going, because I thought, if anything goes wrong and for some reason they won't let me in at the desk, this is going to be this huge disappointment. So I just turned up in his room and said, "Having a good day, sunshine," and that was it. You know, just being allowed back. The separation is from people that you love, and I'm sure whether it's children, whether it's partners, whether it's parents, is really, really tough.
But I'll tell you what, you know, we talk about how almost like how we ended up here was almost like by accident and all that stuff. But moving to Chestertown, like when this stuff happened, was such a great bonus, because so many people brought food and people were coming and visiting. Pam White said, if you ever need to go, because something about the way the street lights are here in this country makes it hard for her to drive at night. Pam White, the soon-to-be ex-president of the board, offered to take her whatever hour of the day if she needed to go to the hospital. And I mean, everyone's just been terrific. I mean, Colleen there brought us a lasagna, it was excellent. And you know, but you know, so it was sort of like, you know, living in a small town has that benefit. You know, the guy down at, you know, Riverside Unique, the gift shop over there, him and his mom went around to all the businesses in the downtown area and got contributions, brought her stuff. I mean, she still keeps appearing with these snacks, like, "Oh, here, I'm like, what is this?" It goes, "Oh, something else they brought," you know. Still, even now, I've been, you know, whatever, how many months it's been, you know. So, and the freezer out there still full of stuff. I mean, I don't even know what else in there. She knows. But.
Well, Mike actually said to everybody, "Okay, so if we don't feed Inez while Paul's in in hospital, she might not eat. So we need food for her. And also, she doesn't want to spend all her time cooking when Paul comes home. So we need to leave her with a full freezer too. And, you know, the support, the messages, the prayers, the love that has come from our friends, you know, from Virginia, from Maryland, from across the world, the love that has come from our friends has just been phenomenal and so exceptional in getting us through what were a really difficult few months. Anyway, I think we're already
out of time.
You said we were out of control, so we do a quick trip to the studio.
We could do a separate one for a studio visit if you want. I mean, it's up to you guys. But do you want to just run down there real quick?
Well, we can always do another one. But I think we should go down. Everybody's here to see you and see your studio. And if anybody has to go, you know, no hard feelings, they can drop off, but we often go a few minutes over.
Yeah, let's take a quick trip to the
Yeah,
studio.
I have to go make dinner for Jackie, my wife, and
It's really good to see you, Professor.
yeah, and I really appreciate your story. You know, I've never heard anything like that, and you always wonder what it would be like if it happened to you. And you've given us some amazing insights and really how to cope with a very serious situation. I'm so glad that you're still with us, and I really appreciate you telling us your story. That was great. Thank you.
I was just lucky that, you know, I mean, that hospital, they were really super aggressive from the minute I got there in dealing with it. I mean, I had some kind of secondary infection too, like a second pneumonia that they didn't know exactly what the nature of it was. And so they were basically just bombarding me with every antibiotic. They took tissue, they grew a culture and to determine what the exact thing they needed was. And then that got me past that one.
Yeah, I'll say another thing about the whole internet social media thing. Paul posts a lot on Facebook. I look at it a lot and I comment, but I rarely post. And then it came to the 18th, 19th of January, and I thought, people know Paul has COVID, and all of a sudden he's disappeared. So I need to let people know what's going on. So I started a daily report on what was happening with Paul, and the following for that and the support for that from both him and me was just superb.
Right, and then finally sort of like the crisis is like sort of past, you know, and I'm home from the hospital, so she decides to tell Facebook, the world of Facebook, I'm going to probably not be posting this every day like I was. I'll give you updates from time to time. And the hue and cry went up. No, we want the daily broadcast. So she still had to keep doing it
For a while, anyway.
I wasn't doing much then, but
okay, quick studio trip then.
Oh yeah, come on. Now I'm going to switch over to the Paul cam.
That was great. That was really great. And I mean, it was nice to know, you know, that he was still with us and that when he was getting better, that was really good news. And it was really nice of you to keep us all informed. It was great.
Yeah, and the support that came as a result of that was just stunning. It was lovely. So yeah, it meant a lot to me too, because it started off as, you know, there are so many people that care about him, they need to know about him, and then it was just okay.
Yeah, because, and you got to remember, this is she's taking care of me, but she was sick herself too at the same time. So I always make sure I mention that because people forget. But just so you go, so the guy, okay, just to show you real quick, I'm going to show you some paintings that would never have existed if I hadn't done my first Paint the Town with Chestertown RiverArts, which you should become a member of if you're not, or support with your contribution. See, there's a painting I did at Easter Neck on our living room wall. All these paintings are mine in the house, except for we have a couple of Inez's up too. Inez started painting too partly because of her association. So all these things, this is the thing I did as a part of another plein air event for some organization across the other side of the base. So of course they don't really count as much as around here. But
Studio.
okay, yeah, I'm
Not
going
at all.
to take this. Come on, Inez.
I'm coming.
See, Inez has to come too because it's not just my studio anymore. Inez has her work area down here too now because she started painting too. So, but anyway, this is our basement. Part of the reason why we got this house was because in St. Paul needed to have a studio. So we had an unfinished basement which we converted Chestertown Construction, man, Paul Inez Santori, I highly recommend that guy. Well, this is my first painting I did after getting out of the hospital. It's a painting of the redbud tree out in front yard. It was
So
my-
Paul, how soon was that after getting out of the hospital?
So this is our next area over. I sequestered her into a small area in the corner.
Inez, I'm glad to see your workspace. You may want to tell Paul we're having a hard time hearing him. He's gotten far away from the microphone.
Oh, I finally got back down there, finally started working again. So this is my sort of my project I'm working on right now, this painting stuff. You know, the swim center, it's based on the swim center at the, because we were going swimming a lot. This is a painting I did of a more realistic painting that I did at the swim center. But I was there one day, and Inez always swims longer than me, so I was waiting, and I just got this idea for this painting of these women, and they're at the pool. You know, this is sort of a very stylized, sort of an abstract version of what the center looks like. And so I'm working. That's in progress. I'm still working on that. That was what I was working on when I got sick. I'm also got this other painting that I started. This is what they look like. Like that painting kind of looks like this underneath, you know. And you know what I do when they give away my secrets? It's because I'm a cheapskate. I can't stand to throw the paint away. It's on the palette, but it's after a while it gets all gummed up, so I need to use it up. So I just put it on here to make like an underpaint. Like I scrape it all off the palette, put it on here, and then kind of wipe it off a little bit. This is a copy I'm doing of a painting by this guy, Gustav Klimt. He did this painting. Mark Howard suggested that I do a version of this painting, so I'm still working on it. This was something I started last before. I haven't really got a chance to work on it some more. I can only do so much on any given day. Still, I try to put a wall around 2 o'clock and I have to crash. Anyway, and this is another one I'm working on. This one here, still, I'm preparing a panel that my friend Jason Nixon, the guy he builds furniture and stuff. He's a construction guy. He built me this panel, and I've got an idea for a view of the river that's going to be on there. So anyway. So we'll go up and say did a font that things like this.
Really fun to see the huge space.
Stairs still suck, okay? Stairs are no fun. Anyway, so what are you doing? Did they hang up? Is that it? They're over. Oh, no, they're still there.
Oh, you should go to classes.
Huh?
No, we're still here.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear us?
Your wife's gonna be yelling at you to cook the pork chops.
So, to raise glasses, a toast, to love in the time of COVID, to RiverArts, to all our friends.
Salute.
Thank you all. Salute.
To Paul and
Paul and
Inez.
Inez.
Yeah. Don't worry, Dave. This is sparkling fruit juice, okay? There's no.
Oh, okay. I'm glad to hear that.
I want to make sure Dave knows that because I have a tendency to break out in handcuffs if I actually drink if I just stick with the rated G beverages. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway, we love you guys.
Thank you, guys. This was
No, it was really
maybe the
great.
best salon ever.
Yeah.
I say that
We
every
love
time.
you all
but
too.
It was great.
You are loved by many, and it was really fun to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very
so much.
special.
The pear apple one at the store. Get that one.
It's really good.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.